You know, when you consider what's happening down in Washington these days, and again, you're all following stuff as much as I am. I wish that there were, you know, I wish the entire state was here. They would get a sense of what's really going on. But I will say, my sense is from talking to people all over, not just in Berks County, but across this Commonwealth and across the country. Maybe they don't know exactly what the reason is for why things are happening in Washington. And maybe they can't explain exactly why these folks are so intent on destroying our wealth, devaluing our dollar, impoverishing our children. Maybe they don't have the answer for all that, but they know that something is just not right. And people are beginning to ask questions. I think that that's a positive thing. And I think to that extent, as we stand up and we say, all right, there is an answer. The Obama answer is not an answer. The Obama direction is not a direction that is right for this country. It's not the kind of change that people expected. It's not the kind of change that we want. It's not the kind of change that I'm surprised about him delivering. But it's not the kind of change that we can either afford or, for the sake of freedom, allow to exist. His direction and what is happening in Washington is the exact opposite of what our founders fought and died for. And it's the exact opposite of what the Constitution and Declaration of Independence is built upon. And if we're going to make a turn, it's going to have to be a re-identifying of what it was in those documents that took us, that have gotten us to where we are, for how we get back. You know, as I've been talking to so many folks, I think we're at the point now, considering what's happened just these past few weeks, and I can't believe how many things have happened in these past few weeks. Executive orders, overturning this and that and the other thing, running through Congress, the passing of these bailouts. And I have to say, it started under Bush, but it's now taken to new heights under Obama. The spending of trillions of dollars, we're talking at the table. You can't get your hand around $1 trillion. And neither can they. But they're spending it with abandon. How do you spend that kind of money? Where do you get it from? Of course you print it. We know that. But when you print it, where does that come from? It comes from a depreciation of every dollar's worth of assets, of everything that everybody in this country has put aside through work and hard effort. It steals from every one of them and from our kids everything that we put aside. It is theft of the grandest design. That's how it is happening. So they can stand down there and look good and come back and hand out a check to somebody. It's blood money. It's terrible. Now, so I think people are getting an idea. Wonder why their houses are going down in value, many? You get an idea of why your bank accounts or your investments are going down? It's because they already had printed lots of money. And when this gets into circulation, it'll go down further. So, really, most people are saying, what can we do? I am sensing that people really at the point of saying, what can we do? I was in Washington with a group of legislators from about 40 other states back the second week of December. I belonged to a group called ALEC, which is more the conservative organization of state legislators. And I'm on the tax and fiscal policy group, and two of us from the state are on that. So we were down to go over where things were with the budget overall and the deficits that were at that point in December. Obviously a whole lot more now. And good guys, Many of them I've known for several years. We had economists that were there. We had all kinds of discussions that were there. And at the end of the day, the members, like me, other members, when they were asking questions relative to, well, Mr. Federal Reserve President, who's there, where do you think things are going? Can you explain, what they were really asking for? Yes, they wanted to know information so that they could go back home and get an idea of how they could deal with the deficits within their various states. But more than not, they were really asking for information on what they ought to do for themselves. Sensing that that things were out of control for themselves. And yeah, we've got to, those of us in office, we're going to have to deal with budgets. And they're bad. All I can tell you, I don't know how we're going to deal with this one this year. There's going to be, we cut sufficiently, there are going to be riots in Philadelphia. And if you don't, you're going to raise taxes so high that you'll kill people who are working. It's going to be tough. But one of my point was that here are guys who are good guys elected in office. And yeah, we're there to talk about getting ideas on how to deal with state issues. But at the end of the day, they were really trying to get a sense of what should I do for me and my family? What should I be doing for my investments? What should I be doing for, and that I think is where everybody is. Many have already made have made adjustments, and I think that's good. But when we get to the point of saying, what should we do? Those of us who know and love freedom, those of us who support and defend our Constitution, those of us who operate under the rule of law, those of us who fear and respect our God and Creator, who has blessed this nation and given us what we have. We just kind of feel like we just can't afford to keep sitting back anymore. And that we've got to do something. Don't you feel that way?
Yeah.
And have you all figured out what it is you're going to do? That's where the rub comes here right now. What do we do? And I think when confronted with circumstances like this, the best thing to do is just kind of go back and say, all right, how did those who went before us deal with these issues? Jim, when did I start?
So 3 minutes ago.
10 minutes of water.
Yeah, okay. How did our founders, how did those who signed that declaration, how did they deal with overtaxation? How did they deal with a tyrannical king? How did they deal with those pressures that brought things to a head? Well, one thing they started with thinking it all through. They looked all through history. They looked at the civilizations of time. They took and they compared the best and the worst of everything that went before. And they came down that said, you know what? Individuals are given certain rights by God Himself, inalienable rights.
Amen.
And therefore, because of that, everything else follows. You need a government, they know. But it should look like this, limited, defined. It should be representative of the people. It should not be tyrants over the people. All of those basic things.